executive committee meeting, and I'm going to get right into it if I can. I'll start with apologies. I don't believe we've got any. No, right. Got a full house. We've got the minutes of the 3rd of October, which are you in agreement I sign those as a true record? Right, thank you. I'll do that. Declarations of interest. Please declare any interest in accordance with the code of conduct that you feel necessary. Item 4, there is no part 2 item. Item 5, there's no public questions. Okay, so we're halfway through the agenda already. How about that? Just thinking about timing and pacing, everybody. And we move on to item 6, which is digital customer strategy. And here we have 2 recommendations before us. Up there on the table, there on the screen, which we can all read. And that's the director to introduce the paper, and I'll come on to the portfolio holder. So, Jo.
Thank you. So you can see there's 2 clear recommendations being put forward in the paper. The strategy, as I'm sure you've been able to read, sets out the council's vision to put the customer first, which means constantly looking to improve the user experience and ensuring that customers' needs guide how services are developed and delivered. The draft strategy has been subject to a public consultation. We've had very positive feedback from that consultation exercise, which included an online survey, as well as proactive work by a wide range of our voluntary and community sector partners who sought out their users, particularly those that they felt might be people who do not already engage with the council through digital means, and people that they felt might otherwise be excluded potentially from having their say in terms of the themes of the strategy and their ability to comment on it. So we had brilliant support from our voluntary and community sector partners who we actively asked to help us. We also had information in the libraries across the city with the aim of trying to capture the views of people, as I've already said, who aren't already digitally engaged with the council. You'll see from the report that prior to the consultation, we commissioned some work from our customer experience partner, Red Quadrant, and that was to look at digital inclusion in the city. We wanted to be really clear and wanted you to be really clear about the areas of the city where people are already facing potential exclusion from all the benefits that digital technologies bring us in society. And a key part of the proposals in terms of the work going forward will be to ensure that we do what we can in support of our partners, but also proactively as a council to endeavour to reduce digital exclusion in the communities that our heat map have identified are the most vulnerable in the city. You'll see from the appendices to the report that there's a lot of detailed analysis about what we know about customers in terms of our council services, with a wide range of recommendations about the things that we need to do to improve the customer experience right across the council. And as you can see, the second part of the recommendation is that the members note that work is already underway to create an action plan that would address all those many issues that have been raised through the analysis we've done of our current state of being in relation to our knowledge and ability to measure our customer experience and to make sure that we have a continuous cycle of improvement. So just to summarise, there's a huge amount of work that we know we need to do as an organisation going forward. At the moment, we're not asking for any additional resources to start taking some of that work forward. We've got existing resources in place. We've realigned some of the work of some of our staff to focus exclusively on this, and we will be coming forward early in the new year with a detailed implementation plan setting out what we expect to deliver by when, and if there is a need for additional resources, we'll be putting that forward within that action plan early in the new year. So hopefully you'll find the information comprehensive. We've set out the 10 strategic goals of the plan, and hopefully quite a lot of detail about what we think that means for the future, what it means for the organisation, and how we can be an exemplar council in terms of excellent customer experience going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. So I'll move to Councillor Jobson. Leaders, any comment? Okay, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief comment. For example, looking at the paragraph 818, I don't mean to look at it, but I just say you get lost in jargon. And I just worries me that the lowering the level so that people can actually buy into this, I've read the 5 things to build a customer intelligence model and a data accountability framework. Yes, I know what the words mean. I don't know what the phrase means. So this is one thing I've mentioned to you, but I think there's a need at an early stage to have a meeting for all members to attend, for them to buy into the concept of what we're talking about here, but not necessarily to the jargon. I think it's important to get the concept across, because I think most of the issues that members will raise are what customers are going to raise. What impact will this have? How will it work? How will it improve things? And I think, at this stage, I'm just lost in the jargon, and I feel that should be the next stage. We should move on to that quite quickly, I hope.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a few points. Thank you very much for presenting this strategy. I was interested in the mapping exercise, and the heat map also overlaps with those areas that are highest in terms of the indices of multiple deprivation. So I'm very interested in the strategy talks about understanding the extent of digital inequality and the impact on council services and its goals. But maybe we need to be asking questions around how can the council better respond to the needs of the people in that area, to help people, support people with their lives, and then reduce demand on services. So that's the first point. My second point, I was a bit concerned in 8.18 about the point about digital inclusion work could be delivered through the community grants programme and Wellbeing Exeter. And given that the first programme is cancelled and the second programme is coming to an end, what is the plan B? Just 2 more, which are short points, Chair. On 12.1, it says there's no direct carbon or environmental implications. So it does start a run on renewable energy. It'd be interesting to know how you've come to that conclusion, what analysis is there. I think it's important that we understand that. And the final point in terms of developing the action plan, it would be good to have an indicative budget. You've talked about that services can be reorientated to deliver this, but actually there will be service implications which I think would be helpful to know before council comes to consider this. And as part of your action plan, whether before council again, will you be able to provide information about reporting dates and the processes for doing so? Because at the minute it's sort of said that it will be in it, which is good, but actually there's no recognition that this major service change will need to have key reporting points. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to it, and maybe not tonight with all of that, because there's a lot in there, and of which may need a thought through. So I'll open this up to other members of the committee who would like to say anything for the board. Okay, I've got, all right, yes, Barbara, Councillor Denny.
Okay, thank you. I support this document. Okay, going digital, we say is the way to go. But also in there also states quite clearly as well that some people don't like digital, and it's bringing them forward into that. And I've always used the analogy where I've gone into our older working. We have a 93-year-old who quite happily will use the internet. She's most probably more au fait with it than what I am. But we have a mere baby of 72 who won't even touch it, and it's bringing it forward. And I do agree we need to sort of help that. In the HRA, we have our own tenant initiative where we are actually taking digital into the community rooms, particularly about scams and things like that. But we could actually, sort of enhance that and come into this plan as well. But there will always be the need for somebody to be on a telephone, because not everybody will ever get on to truly digital, which I understand is recognised in this report, because people will always have strokes, accidents or things like that. When my brother-in-law had the stroke, the first thing he was told was don't do anything digitally online. Okay, so we have to think about that, but I do support it. I think it's a good way, and it will also help the council, not just in savings, but also for the people who can't use digital to have a better service as well. Thank you.
Councillor Morris?
Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting and excellent report, and I'm quite looking forward to see what happens moving forward. And I'm really impressed by the use of data to support the needs and what we need to do, because we've all sat over the last 5 or 6 years and anecdotally told everybody about who wouldn't be able to use the internet and who. And I have to say, from the point of view of my older relatives, they're quite insulted, because usually it's older people that are referred to, and post-COVID they do everything online to the point it's quite annoying that they can get their access to me as much as they can. So I'm really pleased to see the report, and I'm happy to support it and look forward to what comes forward.
Thank you. Councillor Parkhouse. Oh, no? Anybody else doing that? Councillor Wood?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the report, it is a good report. It's well researched. There's a lot of evidence in there, and it's good to see. I know 20 years ago, when we were talking about subjects like this, you would feel that perhaps you were creating a barrier for those with grey hair. I've got grey hair now, and I don't feel it's a barrier. What is a barrier for me and the majority of individuals who access our services is that you need to have services available in your time frame, and that's 24/7 these days, and it needs to be of a quality that you don't feel frustrated, and the transaction or in whatever format you're trying to carry out, reporting a full bin or paying for your race or whatever, that those transactions have to be smooth, they have to be clear. I mean, one question in here is about PayPal. And actually, PayPal is a very useful a device, because it helps you to trust the internet. You're not putting your credit card details out there. So it's just lots of thought like that actually meets the need of a lot of the population. But at the same time, as has been said by my colleagues, there's a lot of work and thought has gone into making sure that those who could be excluded by a good digital process is being considered. We're looking at how those needs can be met. But I think it's excellent that we are looking at how we can be as effective and as accessible to the majority of the population. Better systems. Great.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I'll shout because I haven't got a boom box. Okay.
I've got a boombox, there we go. Firstly, I want to thank Joe, actually, because this is the second part, in a way, of the transformation project that started before we went into COVID. And what was started at that point was trying to make sure that staff had digital access to everything. Trialing sort of working from home was an idea of that, but having to have proper platforms that they could use and equipment to be able to do it. And Joe had started on that, and this customer part of it was going to be the next tranche of it. And then, of course, COVID happened. Bang, we were into a lockdown. But we were able to work really well because of the work that Joe had already done, and other officers and department heads and leads had already done. Everybody was able to actually keep the council going during lockdown from day one. So I just want to say, very belated post-COVID, thank you for that. But that also sort of shows the importance of digitalisation, because if that work hadn't been done at that time, we would have really been in quite a tight hole. I really like this report. There's loads of data in there. As always with data, you can look at it with a slanted eye and use it this way, that way. But just want to pull out a really quick couple of points about the data, which I thought was interesting. 49% of respondents to the consultation stated that speaking to an officer to resolve their issues was the most important thing to them. So nearly 50% of people, it sounds like they would rather ring up or come in. But then 47% said actually having a choice of channels came out as most important for them. So I think that figure of 49% of people that want to speak to an officer will go down, and obviously we're going to ask for more data after a certain period to see if that is the case. Because if people are able to actually get stuff done through the website, online, more quickly, more efficiently, then they won't need to ring up. And I have a quick anecdote about that, about my garden bin. When my garden bin got picked up, took away, didn't come back, I paid for it and it had gone missing. So I tried to go through our own website to actually sort that out, and I couldn't. I ended up having to have 2 phone calls and spent 2.5 hours of my day trying to sort out the problem that I'd paid for a garden bin, and lovely people on the end of the phone, wonderful. Turned out, because I'd paid for it by PayPal, it wasn't showing up on the spreadsheet of payments in that department. So that really rang a red flag with me. So there's 2 separate spreadsheets. So all that sort of thing, if that's sort of sorted out, it will free up the people that have got customer service skills and have been trained and have had the experience to be working with more complex issues of people that really do need face-to-face contact and an immediate verbal interaction. So, and that's in the report. It says that that's what's going to happen. So really pleased about that. I'm also pleased about the point of information following somebody around. First of all, you might think that's a bit Big Brother, but we're past that now, aren't we, really? Another thing that I found very difficult when trying to help people with housing issues and financial issues, that you'd have to go to lots of different departments and they will have to say the same thing again. So if they're already in trauma, already in some sort of crisis, having to find the time, the energy, the emotional energy to have to keep reiterating why they're phoning to us to not pay this bill, or what crisis they might be in, or urgent situation, is really draining, really draining, time consuming for people. So to be able to just have it come up and somebody say, yep, it's okay, I get the situation, we'll deal with that for you for whatever reason, it's again a really big point that's got to free up a lot of time, but also make it much better for our residents and our customers. Just one more point, I thought the feedback that came from St Petrock's and YMCA was really good as well through that consultation. And I can see that St Petrock's have invited you to come in and for there to be a focus group purely with their customers about using digital. So I just want to check with Joe that will be taken up. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Joe. We've a couple of requests there about a potential members meeting. I feel sure we'll look at briefing that out at the appropriate time. The jargon will be a meeting, so you'll understand that jargon. And there's some other detailed questions there. I don't want to go into great length now, but we can come back to them. Is there any quick answers? If not, we'll have to respond.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can remember them all, but certainly the one about why there isn't any costing now. I think it's because I guess what we're trying to do here is it's a herd of elephants we've got that we're pushing up a hill. This is an iterative process. And so there are some things that we need to do, which we describe internally as housekeeping. So there's things that we need to do around our data, for example, that we have to sort out before we can price some of the solutions that we would want to take forward. So every bite of data costs us money. So there's a huge amount of work that's going on across the organisation with staff to get staff to stop storing data that they don't need. So, and that is massive. It's a huge amount of work, and we've been working on that for 6 months, and that's coming to its conclusion. Now, had we tried to cost the implications of us owning that amount of data, it would come up with a really different figure to the one that we're going to be coming up with later in the year. So that's just one example about why we don't want to try to come up with assessments of how much things are going to cost, because there's a lot of work we need to do in order to be able to get ourselves to a position where we're able to come up with some reliable estimates. And also we have our partners, Strata and the other councils that we're working with. And in the last year, we've had major changes in the way that we work with the councils and our IT company, which means that we're in a much healthier place in terms of collaboration across the 4 organisations. And we're just going through a process now of looking at all of the business plans in terms of the digital strategies for the 3 councils, and where there's synergy that will save us all money in the long run by joining things up. So if I were to try to assess the costs now, I think the figures I would be giving you would be totally unrealistic. In 3 or 4 months' time, we'll have a clear business case from Strata that will be setting out the costs for the councils in terms of the business plans, and I know they're actively looking at that now. So I appreciate that the need to look at costs, and I think you just have to bear with me that there'll be a time for that, and we will bring robust, reliable cost estimates as soon as we're able to, which I think will be in 3 or 4 months' time, early in the
Okay,
year.
thank you. Thank you, Joe. And that just a reminder, we will be getting an email very shortly to start clearing your own inboxes with everything else and all that sort of stuff.
You
2
will
months
indeed.
to get, we will. So, so
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
Excuse me, can I just make a point of clarification? I think there were a couple of questions, a couple of points raised in one of the questions which are factually inaccurate, and I just think it's worth correcting the record. So it was stated that the community grants programme has been cancelled. I think the organisations who've received wall grants or community building grants this year would be surprised at that. And there was also a statement that Wellbeing Exeter is ending. Again, I think, and this is one I think we need to be particularly careful of, no decisions have been made beyond next year, and those are people's jobs that we're talking about here. There has not been any consultation or any further decisions made on that. So I think it's worth noting for the record that neither of those statements that were made previously by a member are correct.
Thank you. Right. So we got 2 recommendations there. I'm going to move them formally from the chair. Can I have a seconder?
Seconded.
All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair, that has been carried.
Thank you. You are free to go. That's right. And now move on to item 7, which is the annual scrutiny report. And we have Councillor Naima Alcock here, chair of the scrutiny programme board. We've got 2 recommendations here, Councillor. If you'd like to talk us to the paper, please free to tell us all about the work of scrutiny and how you're keeping an eye on us.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I think the report is quite self-explanatory. It just sort of sets out the work of scrutiny over the last year. It notes that we've been meeting more frequently. We've been meeting quarterly. Shall I turn this off? Back? I shouldn't be. Okay, great. Yeah, I think it's for you all to know, and it will be going to full council in December. Here to answer any questions if I can, or else we will come back to you. But I think one other thing I wanted to raise, which may be of interest, is something that the programme board has been looking at, is how we can increase sort of transparency around the topics that come into us through the pro formas. So we are looking at a proposal. I've asked Democratic Services to consider a proposal for how we can, create more of a feedback loop to scrutiny members, so they can see what's been submitted to us, where it is in the process, and what has been decided by SMB about how that might be taken forward. So hopefully we can update on that soon. And the other thing is just, we would really encourage, I'm trying to really encourage everyone on scrutiny to engage in that pro forma process more and bring forward topics for discussion, because I don't think we're quite at the volume where we would want to be, and it's such an important function, and so that's something that I'm very keen to look at over this next period. I think that's all I have to say, really.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
How do you think? Yes. Thank you. As I say, I think this is the 4th occasion of which I've had this report in front of me in the last month or 6 weeks. And interestingly, it's not changed. So, as I say, it follows the pattern of other local authorities in its report. I just wish we couldn't somehow make it a little bit more exciting about the things we actually do, instead of just being a sort of rewritten telephone directory. But this is a style that other authorities follow as well. So it's just, I think, for a public document, it doesn't capture in many respects the activity that members are involved in, as distinct from just identifying the task. Because I think a lot of valuable work has been done in the last year and in previous years, and hopefully in future years as well. And I just hope we can build some life into future reports so that people think, well, we'll mind looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore. Councillor Jobson. No. Any other member of the executive? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Just really going on record to say how much I appreciate the work of the both scrutiny committees and the scrutiny board. I know that as a portfolio holder, occasionally I kind of get asked along and I think, oh, here we go. But actually, it's very useful to get the feedback. It's not a matter of being challenged; it's a matter of making you think about the portfolio that you have the honour of leading. And I think it's very useful to sit at the table and talk about the detail with those that understand it. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Morse.
I was pretty much going to say the same thing. First of all, just to thank every member of scrutiny. I've had some pretty interesting visits to scrutiny this year. One of them was 2 hours long, and everyone knows I love an excuse to talk about anything. So it's lovely to talk about planning for that long, but also that kind of level of political debate and to make you look at things differently. And I'd like to thank all members across all parties of scrutiny for the ability to sort of reassess sometimes what we're doing, but also to have faith in what you're doing is right, because you can defend it and you think it is the right answer despite criticism. I think it's quite important, because sometimes just because you've been criticised doesn't mean you're wrong. So thank you very much to all of the scrutiny members for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Alcock. You've been scrutinised, and thank you very much indeed. So there's two recommendations there. I'm going to move them from the chair.
Second, Chair.
All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item 8, which is the amendments to the scheme of delegation and minor update to the Constitution. Mark, you're going to just draw our attention to something in the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just presenting the annual update report on the proposals to amend the officer's scheme of delegation, which basically we do every year to match operational arrangements of the councils for officers. As well as that, we've also got a minor update to Section 7 of the financial regulations and Standing Order number 54. So again, it's just to bring them up to date and making sure they're operationally correct. The proposed updates are listed in Appendix A, but I'm just going to draw members' attention just to note the removal of the entry that's on page 125 relating to the Director of Net Zero and City Management and the role of the duty holder for the Exeter Port Authority. This removal will just allow the Director of Net Zero, City Management and the relevant portfolio holder to investigate and establish where responsibility for the duty holder resides, and then that will be reported back to executive in due course with who that will be.
Okay, thank you. With that understanding of the detail, Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much for the report. I'd just like clarification on the Standing Order number 52 with regards to the dismissal of statutory officers. So the update is proposing substituting an earlier regulation to the one that's already in the Constitution. So just wondered why that was, and hopefully we've been doing it right. Should we have needed to have done it? I don't know if we have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jobson.
I was saying Standing Order 54, we seem to have gone back to the 2001 regulations from the 2015 regulations, and I just wanted to confirm that it wasn't a typographical error. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell. No, hang on there.
Being out technology, I'm sorry, like a gramophone record here. Anybody can remember those things, those big black things with a hole in the middle. That it's a process question, really, that we're dealing here with some quite technical issues and non-political, etc. Most of them are non-controversial. It just seems to me that what we're lacking in it is the governments and standards subcommittee to have this to go through before it comes to committees like this, and I just put that down as a marker.
We've done that whenever we.
I've just put it down as a marker. Put it down as a marker with a proper subcommittee.
Well, you can. Yeah. You've said it.
Yeah.
But you've had your answers to that one. You can keep going around it, but this is how we're doing it now, and everything's compliant. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other members wish to make a contribution on all of this? Okay, is there a quick answer to Councillor Jobson's and or Councillor Moore's, or do we need it in writing? You've got to investigate it. What have you got to do?
Very quick answer. We're not doing anything wrong. We're simply amending the reference to the legislation. Everything's in order.
Okay, thank you. So we've got the recommendations in front of us. I'm going to move those recommendations from the chair. All those in all those in favour, please show.
It's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 9, which is the request to repatriate a sacred bundle of Mokakis, a ceremonial headdress to the Blackfoot Siskiyou, Alberta, Canada. And so there are some long recommendations there, which is up behind us. And I'm going to ask JP, John Paul Hedge, to speak to it, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really happy to bring forward this to Executive. I'd like Julian Parsons, who's RAM's collection and content manager, to bring through the salient details because he's been heavily involved.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is a report to the accession ceremonial headdress, which has belonged in RAM since 1920. It was identified as belonging to the Holy Buffalo Women's Society in 2013. That was identified by a Blackfoot delegation. As you all remember, last year we repatriated regalia of Chief Crowfoot, and the headdress is related culturally to the regalia, but was a different donor to RAM. At the time of the Crowfoot regalia repatriation, we were requested to bring the headdress from the store to be present at the repatriation ceremony. And at the time of the ceremony and afterwards, we were asked whether we would consider the headdress for repatriation as well. It's a sacred item, so it's an object that would go back into cultural use. So it wouldn't return to a museum, it would actually return back to the Siksika Nation for use. It's taken us a little while to get here because the story of it is not straightforward. It came to RAM in 1920, and the details of the acquisition are unclear. We know the name of the donor, but we don't know the circumstances in which it was acquired. Because the donor was the Lieutenant Governor of the Northwest Territories in Canada and was heavily involved in 2 pieces of legislation, which were Treaty 7 and the Indian Act, it seems highly likely that the headdress was confiscated, probably in relation to the aspect of Christianising the native peoples of First Nations. The thing that we need to do, the due diligence form, we've included the documentation with the report, was to make sure that there weren't any rival claims to the headdress. So we know culturally that's a Blackfoot object. When it was identified in 2013, it was also described as possibly Kanai, who were one of the other Blackfoot tribes. So we reached out to the Kanai Nation and to the Siksika Nation, to members of the Buffalo Women's Society, to give their testimonies of their belief of the origin of the object. And you can see from the report that they've both identified it as Siksika. So we're very comfortable that the artifact is Siksika. It was confiscated at a time of, obviously, in the colonial period, and a sacred item which would go back to ceremonial use. So our feeling is that it's an object that ought to be returned to the Siksika Nation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jobson. Okay. Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Moore. Okay, any other member wish to say something here? I know, right, Councillor Morse.
I was just going to say, I think I could probably speak on behalf of the entire executive to agree with what everybody else has said. There's absolutely no reason we should own this. period, but anymore, and that it should be given back. So I don't think no one's got anything to say. It just seems ridiculous to have anything different to say.
Thank you very much. Portfolio holder, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Julian, for bringing us such a comprehensive and really interesting report. It's a long report, but it's really, really good, informative. So thank you very much for doing that, and also for the work that you have been doing, as you've just explained, with other officers at RAM to make sure that this repatriation is appropriate, correct, and ticks all the legal boxes as well, which is really important. I didn't realise there was such a process until I was there, when the delegation came over and you explained it to me about the whole legal process that you have to go through. So I totally get it now, because I was very impatient at the time. I'm sure you remember, when the delegation said that's our headdress, we want it back, I said, then you shall have it straight away, and was quickly told off because it wouldn't have been legal to do that. So thank you very much for all the work that you've gone through to make that happen. The report is so good. There's obviously not anything that I can add. So instead of that, I'm just going to quickly draw your attention to something which I think is an excellently written equality impact assessment. What's written in there just sums it up really, about the inequalities that are embedded in our understanding of history. And I think that is something that we know now, that the history that is taught to us, wherever we are in the world, is going to be taught to us with a certain viewpoint. And as you get older and as you travel more, as you read more and meet more people, you look back on that history that you were taught in your particular country and realise that's not actually the whole history. You can't possibly get the whole history, but what we can start doing now is make sure that as we are learning things and as we are finding things out, that we retell, readdress, reword a history that we have perhaps been presenting in a certain way. And I know that that's what's happening at the RAM. That's going to be a long ongoing thing, which totally behind. And this is just one of those things really, to acknowledge that something that maybe has been in our possession isn't actually possessed by us. The purpose and the meaning of something should come into the whole issue around possession. So the purpose and the meaning of this headdress is so important to this nation and to the Matokiaks, Buffalo women, that surely that possession has to be there. So thank you very much, and I hope that you will all support this recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got two recommendations there. I'll move those recommendations from the chair. Have a seconder. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you very much. Next meeting of the Executive, Tuesday, the 28th of November. Thank you very much for attending.